from Katihar Medical College, and this is the last session of Plant Kingdom, so the chapter of Class 11 Biology. We have already covered algae, pteridophytes, gymnosperms, bryophytes, and today we will cover angiosperms. So angiosperms, these are the dominant plant in our ecosystem. Wherever we see, the most common plant which we are going to see is algae. So algae, they are the flowering plants. The angiosperms are those plants in which the seeds, it is enclosed in a fruit. We know that the flowering plants which we usually see around us, they are the angiosperms, and they are mainly grown because of their ornamental value. The flowers which they produce, it looks beautiful. That is the main reason why they are produced. Now, angiosperms are those plants in which seeds are enclosed in the fruit, annuals or avenue trees and the vegetable, fruit, ornament plant, all other flowering plants. They represent the highly developed group of plants in the plant kingdom. They appeared on the earth about a million years ago. First angiosperm fossil recorded in the mid-Cretaceous period is Archaeopteryx from China and of Archaecanthus from Canada. Now they are the most abundant and the conspicuous plant in about 2 lakh to they range from about 2,70,000 to 50,000 monocot species. The flowering plants in all kind of habitats. Some grow at an altitude of about 6,000 meters, like in Himalayas, and the few thrive in the Antarctica. In desert, anisomid plants grow flowers and bear seeds in a period of few weeks of rainy season. So they have adapted themselves in such a way that they are able to thrive in all the kind of climate and even at all the altitudes. They may be present in the places of Himalayas or may be present in the places where there is desert area. So they have adapted themselves in such a way that for them the survival becomes easy. Now, a few thrive in the Antarctica in desert and the plants grow flower and bear seeds in a period of few weeks of rainy season. And some flowering plants like Zostera, it occurs in shallow seas. Now, one species it might live in a hot spring as well. So they are able to survive in winter climate also, and one in the hot spring as well. In rainforest, several types of orchids grow on trees. They do not depend on they do not depend on water or food on trees. These are called as epiphytes. So they can either be grown as epiphytes. They do not depend on water or food on the trees. While the angiosperms, they are the dominant plant in the whole ecosystem. So the main thing which we can observe is that they have a production of flowers and only then they produce flowers. So there is some or the other significance which is attached to the production of flowers, and that is the pollination. They have such a good method, successful method of pollination in which there is usually none, like there is not even a chance that the pollination becomes unsuccessful. They have so many ways in which they ensure pollination either on the same plant or on the different plant. And because of the production of flowers, the seed is produced and this seed is enclosed inside a fruit. And this fruit, it is eaten by animals, it is eaten by humans, it is eaten by birds. Because of this, the pollination is also ensured. When these animals, these birds, they eat the fruit, they take away the seed attached to their body or the pollen attached to their body and helps in the dispersal. So angiosperms may be herbs, shrubs, or trees. They have different sizes according to the places they are living in. They grow in all sorts of habitats. Secondly, they have well-developed conducting tissue for the conduction of water and mineral nutrients and organic food. They have developed various ways for pollinating of flowers. This this reduces the chances of wastage of pollen and also ensures the fertilization. In case of cross-pollination fails, bisexuality improves self-pollination. Because they are bisexual or sometimes unisexual, if they are unisexual, then pollination is ensured by the help of wind, water, or the animal, and if they are bisexual, then self pollination occurs and they ensure that the pollination takes place. Fourth is that the young ovules are protected by ovaries, and after fertilization, the seeds are protected by fruit. Fifth, to ensure effective dispersal, seeds are dispersed by wind, water, and animals. Sixth, that a large number of angiosperms propagate vegetatively. So, the innumerous ways of pollination. Second, that the young ovules they are protected inside ovary, which will protect the young embryo which grows. And the third point is that the angiosperms they not only depend on wind for fertilization, but also by other various methods by which fertilization can take place. So they are not only dependent on wind, as in gymnosperms, because they depend on wind for fertilization. There That is the main reason why they couldn't spread in the whole area in where the wind, whenever there is no wind, then how the pollination in gymnosperms will take place. But in the case of angiosperm, the pollination it is ensured by various ways. It can be by the help of it can either be by the help of wind, by the help of some animal, by humans, or by any other way by which pollination can take place. Now, a large number of angiosperms they propagate vegetatively. Development of flower and fruit. Now, development of flower as well as fruit was also a major characteristic of angiosperm because none other than angiosperm, any other plant is not bearing flower or fruit. And the production of flower, it ensures that the female gametophyte and even the male gametophyte, they are protected from the harsh environment. And when the embryo is produced, then it is also protected inside the seed. Now, flower is the reproductive structure in angiosperms. Flower is a modified shoot with limited growth containing floral whorls or sporophytes. In a flower, there are four whorls. These are sepals, that is calyx, petals, corolla, stamen, antrusion, and carpels, gynoecium. Stamens are microsporophytes. Now, if we draw a diagram of flower, you can see that this is a flower and these are sepals and these are the petals. Then the flower it bears the male gametophyte, which is androgen, and a female gametophyte, which is a funnel-shaped structure. It is gynoecium. So this is androgen and gynoecium. It will give rise to microspores, and the gynoecium it will give rise to megaspores. Now, the collection of petals it is termed as corolla, and the collection of sepals it is termed as calyx. Is the greenish part of the flower and the petal, the corolla, it is usually colorful, which attracts the insects and the birds. Now they bear anther or microsporangia. They develop into pollens, which develop into male gametes. Now these stamens, they are the microsporophylls. We know that. Now in the microsporophyll, the anthers, if we draw a diagram of a stamens look something like this. There's a stalk and then there is anther. Now inside the anther or microsporangia, pollens are developed. In this pollen is actually a microspore. We should not be confused if a question is asked that what is the main gametophytic part of the flowering plant. It is not pollen. We often assume that pollens are the main gametophyte, but it is not. Because this is a hard and fast rule that the sporophytic body will give rise to spore and the gametophytic body it will give rise to gametes. So The pollen grains are produced from a sporophytic body, from the microspore mother cells. Microspore mother cells will give rise to production of spores, which are microspores, in which a layman language we call it as pollen grain. Now, inside the pollen grain, when they form a pollen tube after germination, then male gametes are formed. They divide and give rise to production of male gametes. Now, the carpels, they are the megasporophylls and they bear ovules. These are fused ovaries with style, sticky stigma, which entraps pollen. So, the megasporophyll or carpel, it has style and a stigma. Stigma is the topmost portion, then there is style, and then there is ovule. And inside the ovule, ovaries are produced. Now the pollen grain, it germinates on the stigma, and pollen tube passes through the ovary and carries male gametic nuclei, which release near the ovule where fertilization takes place. Now, ovule forms the seed and ovary forms the fruit. The seeds and angiosperms are enclosed in fruit. Now, in contrast to the gymnosperms, where the pollination is carried out by wind, in angiosperms, it does not depend on wind alone. I have emphasized my focus on that. The gymnosperms, they only depend on wind for their pollination, but it is not the same in angiosperms. Angiosperms can be pollinated by any method which is suitable for the pollinator. They have zero requirements for the pollination, which is the main reason why they have evolved so much, because they have no condition for pollination. Their flowers have showy petals and nectaries, scent glands, and other devices to attract insects, birds, and other animals to bring about pollination. The fruit habitat helps in seed dispersal. Fleshy fruits are eaten by animals, and the seeds they are dispersed. So after the fertilization, when the male gamete it fertilizes with the egg, zygote is formed, and this zygote will give rise to embryo. But this zygote, it is not exposed to the environment. It is enclosed inside the ovary, and it will form a fruit. Okay, and this will ensure the protection of the miniature embryo which is formed. And when the seed is produced, it is actually a dormant state. If a condition, if condition which is suitable for the seed to germinate arise, it will germinate and give rise to a new sporophytic plant body. Now, it can be a condition when the fruits they are either fleshy or they can be dry as well. We have seen some fruits which are dry and some fruits which are in the market they are fleshy. So if the fruits are dry, then how pollination will take place? Now these fruits, if they are dry, we have seen that they either have a fur-like structure on them or a hook-like structure. So this will help in the attachment of the seed to the pollinator, like birds or animals, and it will stick to them and it will get dispersed in the soil around where the animal is going. Now, some seeds float in air and water as well, and there, by this method, they are dispersed. The pollination and the subsequent dispersal of fruit by insects, birds, and other animals are the main factor for the dominance of the angiosperm. Evidences are available that indicate the co-evolution of bees and flowers that they pollinate. So, there is even uh, the evidences are also available that how bees and larvae have evolved, they have co-evolved in order to ensure a better pollination for better dispersal of the angiosperms. Now the life cycle of angiosperm. We have already done that the sporophytic and the gametophytic plant body is present in all the plants. In it might be algae, bryophyte, pteridophyte, gymnosperm, and angiosperm. But what is the difference between all these plants? If we see the major difference between them is the presence of the male gametophytic, sorry, the presence of the sporophytic and the gametophytic generation for how long they are present in both of them. It can be the in the case of algae and bryophyte, the main plant body was sporophytic plant. The main plant body was gametophytic, And the sporophytic plant body, it depends on the gametophytic plant body. In case of pteridophytes, the sporophytic and the gametophytic plant body remain for almost around equal duration. But in case of gymnosperms and angiosperms, we now know that the male, that the sporophytic and the gametophytic plant body, out of which the sporophytic one is the dominant, and the gametophytic it is reduced to only a few cells. So, in the life history of angiosperm, we will see that the sporophytic is the main plant body, whereas the gametophytic one, it is only reduced to the male gametes to a few cells only. The male gametes which are produced, the egg which is produced, and not more than that. So, in the life history of angiosperm plant shows two distinct phases, generations, the gametophytic and the sporophytic generation, possessing two n number of chromosomes respectively. It shows the marked dominance of sporophytic phase and the reduction of the gametophytic phase. The two generations alternate with each other during the life history. In angiosperms, the main plant body is a sporophyte consisting of root, stem, and leaf, and it leads an independent life as it absorbs water and minerals from the soil and prepares its food. So, in angiosperms, the main plant body it is a sporophyte, and it consists of root, stem, and leaf, and it leads an independent life as it absorbs water and minerals from the soil and prepare its food. Whereas the gametophytic plant body, it will be dependent on the sporophytic one. The flowers are the reproductive structures of the plant. The flowers mainly consist of calyx, corolla, and rosette and gynoecium. I have already shown you a diagram of the calyx, corolla, and rosette and gynoecium. The calyx and corolla are the accessory bulbs. They are mainly present either for protection or for show, like the calyx, it is present for protection. The corolla, it is present. The petals which we see, they are usually for beautifying the flowers. So not a very necessary thing, but there are two androecium and gynoecium which are the necessary or the reproductive worlds of the flower. And why reproductive worlds? Because if the androecium and gynoecium is absent, then how will the fertilization take place? The androecium consists of several stamens or microsporophylls that bear four pollen sacs bearing a large number of pollen mother cells. Each pollen mother cell on maturing undergoes reduction division, forming four pollen grains. So, inside the androecium, now the androecium it consists of stamens, and this stamen it will bear a pollen sac. Now, inside the four pollen sac, the cut section shows something like this. There are four pollen sac present, and inside these four pollen sacs, the pollen mother cell it goes under reduction division, and four pollen grains are produced. And these pollen grains, these are the microspores. Okay, we have to keep this in mind that these pollen grains gather microspores. The gynoecium consists of carpels or megasporophyle which bear ovary at their base. Now, the ovary may contain one or more ovules. The ovary it can contain either one ovule or more ovule as well. The male gametophyte pollen grain germinates into a pollen tube and forms two nuclei. Now, the male gamete will be formed when the pollen grain it will germinate into a pollen tube and two nuclei are formed. The germinating vegetative cell may be regarded as the male gametophyte as it bears male gametes. When a pollen grain it germinates, it will give rise to production of pollen tube, and inside this pollen tube, two male gametes are formed. Now, these are the vegetative cells which are formed, and they are termed as male gametes. And the pollen grain from which it develops may be regarded as a microspore. The pollen grain it is regarded as microspore, and when this pollen grain it will germinate and give rise to production of two nuclei that will be the male gamete. The female gamete, one cell in the new cell is part of the ovule differentiates into megaspore mother cell, and this megaspore mother cell undergoes meiosis and it will give rise to four cells, out of which the three will degenerate and only one will divide. And this one cell will undergo division and it will give rise to a embryo sac. Now, out of which these four, the three, they degenerate, and the rest of cell divide into eight haploid nuclei. Later, these forms seven cell structure called as embryo sac. It represents female gametophyte because it consists of an egg apparatus. It looks something like this. There is an egg apparatus consisting of an egg cell and two synergids, egg cell and two synergids, a central cell, and a central cell it consists of two nuclei, central cell and T antipodal cell. So it is actually seven celled, but there is presence of eight nuclei inside an embryo sac. Yep, fertilization and seed formation. The pollen grains take stigma as a result of pollination. There, they produce a pollen tube which pierces the stigma and reaches the embryo sac. Then pollination takes place. Pollen grain comes at the top and it will pierce the whole stigma and go towards the embryo sac. And when it reaches the embryo sac, out of the two male gametes and one tube of vegetative nucleus, out of the two male gametes, the one fuses with the egg, one cell, male gamete. This fusion will give rise to production of zygote. Okay? When egg cell and one male gamete will fuse, it will give rise to production of zygote. And when this central cell it fuses with the other male gamete, it will give rise to production of a endosperm. And this endosperm is actually a TN type of cells. The cells which are present in it have TN. The other with diploid secondary nucleus forms triploid primary endosperm TEN. The fusion of the second male gamete with the secondary nucleus it is called as triple fusion. So it will be termed as triple fusion. The zygote develops and forms embryo while endosperm nucleus develops into endosperm. This endosperm stores food which is utilized by the developing embryo. After the formation of embryo, entire ovule gets converted into seed. So this is the whole life cycle of angiosperms. Now this seed on germination, it will form an angiospermic plant and the zygote, embryo, main plant body, the stamen, pollen sac, carpel, ovules, microspore mother cell, megaspore mother cell, they all represent the sporophytic state because they all will have a 2N or a diploid chromosomal set. But the microspores, pollen tube, the embryo sac, this will represent the gametophytic state. And we can see how the gametophytic state is only reduced to a number of cells and not more than that. And this represents the whole life cycle. If we see in this diagram, the plant, it is a sporophytic plant. It has stigma, it will have a megasporangium and a microsporangium. The filament and the anther. Anther will give rise to production of microspores inside microsporangium. The microspore is formed and in the megasporangium, the ovary, inside the ovary, it will have ovule and ovule can be one or many. Out of one, out of the cell of the nucellus, only one give rise to megaspore cell and that megaspore cell will give rise to four cells by meiosis and out of these four cells, three will degenerate and one will give rise to production of embryo sac. Now, this is the embryo sac. Embryo sac consisting of secondary nucleus, antipodal cells, egg, and two synergies. So it is 7 cells, but 8 nucleus are present. The microspore or the pollen grain will give rise to production of a male gametophyte consisting of two male gametes. And out of these two male gametes, one will fuse with the egg and the other one it will fuse with the secondary nucleus. When the fusion with egg takes place, it gives rise to production of zygote, and the fusion with the secondary nucleus takes place, gives rise to production of an endosperm. Endosperm will nourish the embryo throughout it develop throughout until it develops into a plant with root and stem and leaves. Now, alternation of generation. We have seen that how the sporophytic plant it gives rise to gametophytic plant, and then the gametophyte they fuse, and then again the sporophytic plant is brought back. It is evident from the above life cycle that the angiosperm consists of two different stages, the sporophytic and the gametophytic stage, both alternating with each other. This phenomena is known as alternation of generation, that how the angiosperm gets converted into the gametophytic gets converted by fusion into sporophytic, and then by the sporophytic plant will give rise to production of a gametophytic plant. In angiosperms, the sporophytic generation is more prominent and developed, but the gametophytic generation is reduced and inconspicuous, very small and reduced. The gametophytic generation is short-lived and leads to a parasitic life on the sporophytic generation. We can see that the gametophytic part, which is present from here to here, they are dependent on the sporophytic plant body, so they are the parasites. Now, different type of endosperms. Now, endosperm, how the endosperm was produced when the central nucleus fuses with the other male gamete. The endosperm is a food storage tissue of seeds. In angiosperm, it is formed by fusion of male gamete and the two polar nuclei or the secondary nucleus in the embryo sac. The primary endosperm nucleus formed as a result of triple fusion and double fertilization give rise to the endosperm consists of 3n number of chromosomes. So this is for the first time we are seeing that the plant is having 3n number of chromosomes. On the basis of its development, endosperm is of the following three types. It can be either nuclear endosperm. It is the commonest method of endosperm formation. The primary endosperm nuclei undergoes repeated nuclear division to give rise to a large number of nuclei. In the beginning, the nuclei lie free in the cytoplasm and the cell walls are laid on after a large number of nuclei are formed. And the example of this is coconut water. The coconut water is actually free endosperm. And after which this coconut water, the cell walls are produced and will give rise to production of the coconut which we usually see. Cellular endosperm, when the cell walls are laid after each nuclear division. The primary endosperm nucleus, it is known as cellular endosperm. If the formation of cell wall is not present, then it is prenuclear endosperm. If the formation of cell wall occurs after the cellular division, it is cellular endosperm. Thus, endosperm is cellular from the very beginning, as the first and subsequent divisions are followed by wall formation. Now, there can be halobial endosperm. This is the intermediate of the first two. The first division is cytokine. The wall is laid, and the subsequent ones are prenuclear. In this way, half of the body of endosperm is formed by prenuclear division and the other half by the wall formation. So the three types of endosperms. The first one is prenuclear, second one is the cellular, and the third one is the halobial endosperm. In the nuclear endosperm, cell wall formation does not occur. Only the nuclear division takes place. But in the cellular endosperm, the cell wall formation takes place as the nuclear division is progressing. But in the halobial endosperm, it is intermediate of the first two. In when cell division occurs, what happens is that in some case the cell wall is laid down and in some it is not. So in the cases the cell wall is laid down, it is termed as the cellular endosperm, and when it is not laid down, it is prenuclear endosperm. But if the mixture of both are present, it is hellophil endosperm. Now, double fertilization and triple fusion. We have already discussed when the secondary nucleus it fuses with the male gamete. What is happening is there is presence of secondary nucleus. With this secondary nucleus, it has two nuclei, which is fusing with the male gamete. So what is happening is that double fertilization, one, that first fertilization that is taking place is with the egg and the male gamete. But this is the second fertilization or the double fertilization which is taking place. And third is triple fusion. These two cells plus one cell. So three cells are fusing together and giving rise to endosperm, which is why it is termed as triple fusion. So in the flowering plant, two male gametes are discharged in the embryo sac from the pollen tube. Of the two male gametes, only one fuses with the egg nucleus and forms the diploid oospore. This later on develops into embryo, and the fusion is known as fertilization of syn gamete. But the second male gamete moves to the center and fuses with the diploid secondary nucleus, which is formed by the fusion of two polar cells. We know that two polar cells they fuse and they form a secondary nucleus. Now, this resulting nucleus therefore comes to possess 3n or 2n plus n number of nuclei. The 2n plus n. Okay? So when 2n plus n fuse, it is termed as triple fusion. This is known as triple fusion, and the fusion of the main gametes with the egg nucleus and the secondary nucleus together is known as double fertilization. It is the speciality of the angiosperms and was first discovered by Martian. Its significance has not been clearly understood, but it is observed that the triploid cells form the endosperms and not the sister embryo. They will give rise to production of endosperm, and this endosperm will provide the embryo with the nutrition and all the requirements until and unless it is a free plant. The economic importance of angiosperm. So food, the first and the foremost is the food. The food which we eat, it is from the angiosperms only. So the cereals such as wheat, maize, rice, vegetables such as cauliflower, cabbage, potato, tomato, radish, carrot, etc. And the fruits such as mango, papaya, guava, grapes, etc. are the main sources of food. Whichever fruit, whichever uh, thing we are eating usually in our day-to-day life, it is derived from angiosperms. So angiosperms, they are the main source of the fruit when we come to the economical importance of angiosperm. Second one is the medicine. An alkaloid called as aconite is extracted from the roots of the aconitum plant. It's used to control blood pressure. A homeopathic medicine called Satla, it is obtained from anemone plant, which is used to control nerve exhaustion and menstrual trouble. The juice extracted from the roots of the bark of Urina plant, it is used to cure hydrophobia. So it is also used in medicinal purposes. Many uh, things are obtained from these plants, which will help in various ways. One can help in the blood pressure, even in a homeopathic medicine from the anemone plant, which will help to control the nerve exhaustion and menstrual bleeding. And the juices which are obtained from the bark of the Purina plant, it will help in to cure hydrophobia. Now, fibers, the cotton which we see, the jute, and the hemp, they are all obtained from angiosperms. So, fibers like cotton, jute, madras hemp, sun hemp, these are all obtained from the angiosperms. Timber, species of Dalbergia, shisham, Tiris, Sal, etc. is timber which is used for making houses, furniture, and etc. We have also studied that gymnosperm, they also give rise to timber. Timber is also extracted from gymnosperms because they have a light wood that is used usually in cargoes and furnitures And the timber which is obtained from angiosperms, it is hardwood. So it is used in making of houses and furniture. Ornamental, because they are very beautiful. The flowers which they produce are very beautiful. So they are also used for the ornamental purposes as well, such as ranunculus, buttercup, delphinium, larkspur, alyssum, Ibis amara, candy huck, rose, etc. There are some ornamental plants used for decoration purposes. Sixth is the dye. The dye obtained from indigo fella neem. It is used to dye clothes. Hematoxylin is obtained from hematoxylon, logwood used to stain tissues. Red gulal is obtained from Cypripedium, which is a gulal plant. So the dyes which are obtained, such as indigo ferranil, which is usually used for clothes, and hematoxylin. If hematoxylin is a very important stain which we use in the pathology labs for staining of the tissues. Hematoxylin and eosin stains are used. And gulal, it is also obtained from Cisalpina plant, which is termed as gulal plant. So there the uses, if we see, are first of all food. The second is medicine. Some medicines are also obtained. Third one is fiber, the cotton, jute, madras hemp, sun hemp, and then timber. Timber obtained from dalbergia, ciris, sal, which is used in making of houses and furniture. Ornamental of their beautiful flowers, they also use as ornaments, and some dyes are also obtained from angiosperms. And there are many more uses which we cannot enumerate in a short span. Classification. So, on the basis of number of cotyledons, angiosperms, they are divided into monocots and dicots. Cotyledons of what? The seeds which are produced, it can be either monocot and it can be dicot. Dicot and monocot plants. Now, dicot. These are the flowering plants which characterize the presence of two cotyledons in the seed. Reticulation leaves, open conjoined vascular bundles arranged in ring. Tetramerous or pentamerous flower having 4 or 5 members in each whorl and secondary group. So, dicot, all the terms which are stated here, we will again study in the morphology of the flowering plants. So, the flowering plants, they are characterized by the presence of two cotyledons in the seed. So there are two cotyledons present. If we have seen a chickpea seed, it has two cotyledons with reticulate venation in the leaves and open and conjoined vascular bundles which are arranged in a ring, and tetramerous to pentamerous flower. The flower will have 4 to 5 members in each of the whorl, and secondary growth is present in dipole, such as sunflower, rose, mustard, apple, acacia, eucalyptus, etc. In the monocotyledons, these are the flowering plants having single cotyledon in the seed. Parallel venation in the leaves. The parallel venation, it looks like this. Parallel venation, closed vascular bundles scattered in the ground tissue. The arrangement of vascular bundles in the dicots, it has a conjoined vascular bundle which are arranged in a ring. So there is a ring formed in the, if you see the cut section of the stem. But in case of monocot, the bundles, the vascular bundles, they are scattered all around, having the trimerous flowers having 3 members in each whorl and no secondary growth. So this is the main division between monocot and dicot plants. And some examples are grasses, cereals, orchids, bananas, bamboo, palms, lilies, and etc. The difference, if we see cotyledons in dicot, the cotyledons are two, monocot only one cotyledon is present, root, taproot is present, adventitious root, or both. But in the monocot, adventitious roots are only present. The stem, herbaceous or woody vascular bundles arranged in a ring, but herbaceous and soft, and vascular bundles are scattered. By arrangement in a ring, the vessels, they are arranged something like this. But when they say that arrangement is scattered, it means the vascular bundle, they are scattered throughout the stem. The reticulate venation is present in the reticulate venation looks like this, the normal venation which we see. But The parallel equation looks like this. Floral parts tetrol pentavalus instead of more than 5. Try tetrol penta. It is not a hard and fast rule that it has to be trimorous. It can be more. Seed mostly non-endospermic, but few are endospermic. But in monocot, the seeds are endospermic. Now, alternation of generation in plants. We are done with the angiosperm. So, alternation of generation in plants. Different plant groups have different patterns in the life cycle. The angiosperms have two phases in the life cycle: the diploid sporophytic phase, having main plant body, and the haploid gametophytic phase. The two phases they alternate with each other, and this phenomenon is termed as the alternation of generation. The haplontic life cycle. In the haplontic life cycle, we will see that the gametophyte, it is the dominant. In this case, the dominant photosynthetic phase is the gametophyte produced by haploid spores. The gametophyte produces gametes by mitosis. Gametes are produced by mitosis, and these gametes fuse to form a diploid zygote. It represents the sporophytic generation. This will represent the sporophyte. Sporophytic generation. Zygote undergoes meiosis to form haploid spores, and which will again give rise to the gametophytic plant body. And the example are algae like volvox, Spirogyra, Chlamydia moss represent this pattern of life cycle. There are three kinds of life cycle: haplontic, diplontic, and haplodiplontic. The second is diplontic, which is dominant in gymnosperms and angiosperms. As we've seen, the sporophytic plant body, it is the dominant one, and the gametophytic one, it is reduced inconspicuous and reduced to a few number of cells. So in this type of life cycle, the diploid sporophyte is the dominant photosynthetic independent phase of the plant, and the gametophytic phase is represented by a single to few-celled haploid gametophyte. The gametophyte, it is only present in this portion of the whole life cycle of the plant. But the sporophyte, it is consisting of the whole life cycle, as in case of gymnosperms and angiosperms. This kind of life cycle is termed the diplontic life cycle. All the seeds bearing plants, such as gymnosperms and angiosperms, follow this pattern of cycling. Now, haplodiplontic life cycle. In the haplodiplontic life cycle, the plant body, it has almost equal sporophytic and gametophytic plant. In this type, both haploid and diploid phases are multicellular, often free-living. Bryophytes and pteridophytes exhibit this pattern of life cycle, but they differ in their dominant phases. In bryophyte dominant phase, the dominant photosynthetic haloid plant body represents the haploid gametophyte. Yet, in the bryophyte, the dominant plant body was gametophytic, and it alternates with the short-lived multicellular sporophyte, which is totally or partially dependent on the gametophyte for supporting nutrition. But it is exactly opposite in the case of pteridophyte. The main plant body is sporophyte, which alternates with the another free-living plant body, which is gametophyte. In pteridophyte, the diploid sporophyte is the dominant independent photosynthetic vascular plant, and it alternates with the independent short-living gametophyte. Although most algae genes are haplontic, some of them, such as Ectocarpus, Polycyphonia, and kelp, they are haplodiplontic. Fucus and alga in the plantic. So we have to learn the examples. In algae, there are few plants such as Ectocarpus, Polycyphonia, and kelp. They are haplodiploidic, and the one which is Fucus, it is diploidic. So we have covered with the alternation of generation in different plants. The life cycle can be haplontic, diplontic, and haplodiploidic. Haplontic in the case of algae, and diplontic in the case of gymnosperms and angiosperms, and haplodiplontic in the case of pteridophytes and bryophytes. But they differ in what way their plant body is dominating. Okay, so we have completed the whole chapter. I hope you understood. Thank you so much.